Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. You may have heard the name Muhammad at some point. For those who don't know, Muhammad is known as the founder of Islam, the Islamic religion. In this video, we will explore the origins of Muhammad and learn more about the Islamic religion. If you're not yet familiar with Muhammad's story, I invite you to watch the video until the end. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. This way, more people can discover the origins of Muhammad and Islam, the religion of the Arab people. That said, enjoy this content from the channel. The origin of Muhammad, the story of the founder of Islam. Muhammad stood out as an influential religious, social, and political Arab leader, and also as the founder of Islam. According to Islamic doctrine, he is considered a prophet inspired by God, sent to proclaim and reaffirm the monotheistic principles already conveyed by historical figures such as Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and other prophets mentioned in religious tradition. Within the Islamic faith, Muhammad is revered as the seal of the prophets, recognized as the last to receive divine revelation. In addition to his spiritual role, Muhammad was fundamental in unifying the Arabian Peninsula, integrating scattered tribes under a unique political and religious leadership based on Islam. His teachings, practices, and the revelation of the Quran formed the foundations upon which Islamic faith and civilization are structured. His influence extends far beyond his time, shaping cultural, social, and political aspects in regions around the world. According to historical records, Muhammad was born around 570 AD in the city of Mecca, located in present-day Saudi Arabia, specifically in the region now known as Riyadh. Son of Abdullah ibn Abd al-Muttalib and Amina bint Wahb, his life began in challenging circumstances. His father passed away before his birth, leaving Amina to raise him. However, tragedy struck again when Amina died, leaving Muhammad orphaned at the age of 6. After this loss, he was taken in by his grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib, who dedicated himself to raising him. When Abd al-Muttalib also passed away, the responsibility passed to Abu Talib, Muhammad's paternal uncle, who played a significant role in his upbringing. During his youth and early adulthood, Muhammad was known for his honesty and integrity, qualities that earned him the nickname Al-Amin, or the Trustworthy. Years later, he developed a habit of seeking moments of solitude and meditation in a cave located on Mount Hira, near Mecca. During these times, he dedicated himself to prayer and reflection on the mysteries of existence and the social injustices he witnessed around him. Around the year 610 AD, when he was about 40 years old, Muhammad reported a transformative experience. During one of his spiritual retreats in the cave, he was visited by the angel Gabriel. According to Islamic tradition, it was during this encounter that Muhammad received his first divine revelation, commissioning him to deliver God's message to humanity. This experience marked the beginning of his prophetic mission. 3 years later, in 613 AD, Muhammad began publicly disseminating these revelations, facing great resistance from the polytheistic society of Mecca. He proclaimed the oneness of God and taught that total submission to him, known as Islam, meaning surrender or submission, was the correct path to a virtuous life aligned with divine will. Furthermore, he declared himself as the prophet and messenger of God, positioning himself as the continuation of the tradition of other prophets recognized in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. As time went on, Muhammad's message began to attract followers, many of them from the less privileged classes of society, who saw in his preaching a call for social justice and spiritual equality. Despite the initial adversities, his ideas would deeply shape the course of human history and give rise to one of the world's largest religions, Islam. Initially, Muhammad's followers were few, and they faced intense hostility from the polytheists of Mecca. For about 13 years, he and his community suffered persecution. In 615 AD, to protect some of his followers, Muhammad sent them to the kingdom of Aksum, in the region of Abyssinia, which included southern Arabia and parts of North Africa. Later, in 622 AD, Muhammad and his followers migrated from Mecca to Medina, then known as Yathrib. This event, called the Hijra, marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar, also known as the Hijri calendar. In Medina, Muhammad succeeded in uniting the local tribes under the Constitution of Medina, establishing a strong foundation for the Islamic community. In December 629, after 8 years of intermittent conflicts with the tribes of Mecca, he gathered an army of 10,000 converted Muslims and marched toward the city. The conquest of Mecca was largely peaceful, with little bloodshed, and Muhammad took control of the city. A few months after returning from his farewell pilgrimage in 632, Muhammad fell ill and passed away. By the time of his death, much of the Arabian Peninsula had already converted to Islam. The revelations Muhammad reported receiving throughout his life, known as Wahi, literally sign of God, form the verses of the Quran. Muslims consider the Quran to be the literal word of God, serving as the fundamental foundation of the religion. Additionally, Muhammad's teachings and practices, preserved in the literature of Hadith and Sirah, are used as supplementary sources of Islamic law. Now, a few interesting facts about Muhammad's life. One interesting detail, known by some and unknown to others, is that he is said to be a direct descendant of Ishmael through his father. According to tradition, Muhammad would be a descendant of Adnan, one of Ishmael's descendants. Although most Islamic accounts agree that Muhammad was an Ishmaelite, meaning a descendant of Ishmael, some suggest that he may have also had heritage from other Arab peoples. Among these possibilities are the Midianites or other descendants of Abraham, stemming from his union with Keturah. However, these hypotheses are considered more speculative. The predominant consensus within Islam is that Muhammad was a typical Ishmaelite, reaffirming his direct connection to the lineage of Ishmael and Abraham. As for Muhammad's physical appearance, we find a description in the book Sahih al-Bukhari, chapter 61, hadiths 57 and 60. In these accounts, 2 of his companions describe the messenger of God as follows. Muhammad was neither very tall nor very short. His skin was not completely white, nor was it a very dark brown. His hair was neither fully curly nor completely straight. God designated him as a messenger at the age of 40. He lived in Mecca for 10 years and in Medina for another 10 years. When God took him, he had only about 20 white hairs on his head and beard. These accounts show that Muhammad had physical characteristics typical of a man of Semitic origin. His appearance reflected traits common to ancient Semites, such as the Arabs, whose skin tone is usually neither extremely light nor very dark, but has an intermediate, slightly yellowish hue. In addition, he had an average height and originally wavy hair, a characteristic also observed in depictions of the ancient Hyksos, a people of Semitic ancestry, as revealed by the tombs of Beni Hassan. Historical accounts suggest that Muhammad, the prophet and founder of Islam, had at least 11 wives throughout his life, although some traditions expand this number to 13, including concubines. Among his most notable wives were Khadija, Sauda, and Aisha. These women played significant roles in his personal life and in strengthening the emerging Islamic community. It is widely accepted that Muhammad passed away at the age of 62, although some sources indicate he was 61. His death occurred on June 8, 632, in the city of Medina, where he was buried. In addition to his marital life, Muhammad also had children. According to Islamic traditions, he was the father of 3 sons and 4 daughters, most of whom were born to his first wife, Khadija. However, Ibrahim, one of his sons, was the result of his relationship with Maria, the Coptic woman. Among Shiite Muslims, there is a distinct belief that only Fatima was Muhammad's biological daughter, making her a central figure in this branch of Islam. Additionally, the Prophet had an adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, whose story is widely narrated in Islamic texts. Zayd, who was born into the Kalb tribe, had a childhood marked by adversity. As a child, he was captured in a tribal raid and sold as a slave in Mecca. Eventually, Khadija bint Khuwaylid, Muhammad's first wife, purchased him and gifted him to the Prophet. Demonstrating his sense of justice and humanity, Muhammad freed Zayd and began to treat him as a son, to the point that Zayd was known for some time as Zayd ibn Muhammad, Zayd, son of Muhammad. However, a revelation in the Quran established changes in the adoption practices of the time. The verse stated, "Call them by the names of their fathers, that is more just in the sight of Allah." Quran 33:5. After this divine guidance, Zayd was again identified by his biological father's name, reclaiming the name Zayd ibn Haritha. His story not only illustrates the human bond between Muhammad and those around him, but also reflects the values and principles that underpin the social and spiritual practices of Islam. Muhammad belonged to the Quraysh Arab tribe, which possibly carried an ancient heritage linked to Ishmael. Within the tribe, he was part of the Banu Hashim clan, one of the most respected branches of the Quraysh. Regarding his early preaching, there are historical records that claim many Arabs of the time questioned the divine origin of his revelations. Instead of considering his experiences as messages from the angel Gabriel, some suggested that Muhammad was being deceived by a jinn, a spiritual entity or demon from ancient Arab tradition. This interpretation, widespread in ancient times, was defended by some of Muhammad's contemporaries who believed it was a malicious prank by a jinn. However, the majority of Muslims reject this idea, firmly defending that Muhammad's visions were genuinely transmitted by the angel Gabriel and represented divine revelations. I hope you enjoyed this brief story about Muhammad, the founder of Islam, a religion that is official in most Arab countries and also in several nations of North Africa, with Arab and Berber origins. Share in the comments what you already knew or learned about this historical figure. Don't forget to leave a like and let us know if you'd like more content like this, exploring significant figures in history. With that, I say goodbye for now. May God be with you, and see you soon.